Welcome to Shattered Reality with your hosts Kate Valentine and Farusha. Prepare to have your paradigms shifted and your truths questioned. And now, Shattered Reality.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another podcast of Shattered Reality. We are here with you again. I'm Kate Valentine, and this is Farusha.
Hi.
And today we are most honored to have as our guest Mr. Albert Rosales, a true hero of ufology. The man has amassed an incredible, monumental amount of work on humanoids. Not only is it a lot of work, but it's entirely fascinating and very essential to a good study of ufology.
Indeed. And, I just want to speak about his work a moment before we introduce him and how incredibly impressed I am by his dedication. And even if a person should listen to this podcast and be a total debunker, you still cannot discount Albert's work. And the reason for this is he may not actually realize it himself, but he is a phenomenal anthropologist, even from the viewpoint of a debunker. Now, Kate and I here, we're both experiencers, so we're the furthest thing from debunkers. We look at things with a skeptical eye to a certain extent, but even if a person were a debunker, they would have to acknowledge that Mr. Albert Rosales is a premier anthropologist, similar to Artie Six Killer Clark, who does the Star People research. And he has amassed, tell me if this is right, about 17,000 reports of humanoids. So please, welcome with me Mr. Albert Rosales. Hi, Albert.
Hi, Farusha, and Kate. Hi. I'm honored to be in this show here with you guys today, and hopefully I'll be an interesting guest. I don't do too many of these, but
well, that's great.
That's exactly why we love having you on, because what's the point of having somebody on for the fifth time who's going to say the same thing?
And also, really, your work should be recognized. You should be on a lot of these shows and podcasts and so on, and conferences. But, to get right down to it, how did you ever get started down this path, Albert?
Well, like you and Katie, I'm an experiencer myself. Since a young man, I had several experiences and encounters with strange beings, which I call humanoids or entities, whatever you want to call them. I started collecting this type of reports, I would say, in the 1990s, early 1990s. Now I already have over 17,000 cases, taken from sources worldwide, researchers from as far as Ukraine, Australia, New Zealand, Poland, all over the world, South America. Many places that the research there is not well known. I have translated hundreds of cases from different languages, and they're all in my files, which everyone can see at the UFO info site, and are welcome to browse through them. And I'm always ready to receive new information from experiences like yourself, experiencers that haven't, had encounters and have seen strange entities, and I get emails almost daily.
So this is really a worldwide phenomenon. It seems like it goes through, and not just in recent days, but throughout history as well.
I have cases dating back from 4000 BC.
Oh, wow, really?
And I have, you mentioned RD6 killer, and I was in contact with her recently, and I have her latest work, which is excellent, and she covered locations which haven't been covered before, and then very little information is available there, and I commend her for her work.
Yes, me too.
And anyway, the address to contact Albert is Garuda, spelled Garud as in dog, Garuda79 at att.net, but that's on his website as well.
His website
Yes.
is www.ufoinfo, ufoinfo.com. Correct, Albert?
Correct. And then you go to the subcategory of humanoid, and that's where you can find all my files there.
I noticed that you categorize by letter the different types of humanoids that you are discussing, and you put them into categories, and you also have them listed by the year in which they came up. So you have them sort of cross-referenced, which is an excellent idea. Maybe you want to first tell us a little bit about those categories, and then I want to tell you how, I have divided up certain categories for myself, and I want to ask you what you think of that. But please first tell us about the different categories other than the year in which the humanoid
I use the old what they call Alan Hynek category, which of course Alan Hynek was a late great researcher, astronomer from the University of Northwestern, which he started off with the Air Force with Project Blue Book, and then he changed his mind about the phenomenon and became a fantastic researcher. But anyway, he used the and the C3 category, which is Close Encounters of the Third Kind. There are subcategories in C3s. We got category A, which is when a humanoid is seen on board or on a UFO, any type of unidentified flying object. B is when a humanoid or humanoid entities are seen coming in and out of a UFO when it's on the ground. C is when there's a UFO on the ground and entities are seen nearby, but not necessarily seen going in and out of the object. Then you got B, which is, let's say there's been a number of sightings at a location, and an entity seen alone in a field or in whatever he might be seen at, but not accompanied by an object or a UFO. That'll be B. And then you have category E, which is, I say, the most common nowadays, when you and people or the witness encounters an entity alone, or maybe more than one entity, either in the bedroom, in the house, in the field, on the roadway, any type of entity. And then you have, after that, I have category F, which is more like a psychic connection, maybe telepathic communication between the witness and the object, not necessarily with an entity. And then you have category G, which is also very common now, as the abduction scenario or contact scenario. I added a category H, which is supposedly a crash or retrieval of an object or an entity by either government or other sources. Then there's another category, which is I call category X, which is when the incident is so strange and so uncommon that it doesn't really fit into the other category. So I just made up the X.
Well, X is really a fascinating category, and I've read through a lot of the X's. I wish that I had read through all 17,000, but I think it would take me a very long time. But I have read through quite a few of them, and you're being an experiencer, both of us being experiencers. I have a slightly different breakdown just for myself, and let me know what you think of this.
Okay.
I sort of categorize it into three parts. One part being something that is very much flesh and blood, where we're not exactly sure whether it is in fact an entity or a human being who is like a dwarf or in some way not the average-looking person, like has a disability perhaps. And I'm not talking about somebody who limps. I mean, I'm talking about a major difference. Now, whether those
Right.
folks might be, perhaps a hybrid, I find that to be incredibly interesting. And then there is a category that I understand that you've had an experience of, like, something occurring in the bedroom where you're not sure if it's a physical manifestation or almost like a spiritual manifestation. In other words, something that you wonder if you could put your hand through, but it's still there. And then the category in the middle that seems quite flesh and blood, but really nothing human.
Well, you're right. Especially about the hybrid type of entity, which it looks like a human, but it's not exactly. There's some subtle differences, maybe in the eyes and the skin coloring. I do believe they're hybrid type entities around.
Well, a friend of mine that had been abducted at one time claimed that there were indeed quite a few, I guess ETs maybe not, but certainly humanoids among us, and that she could detect them because there were, as you said, very subtle differences. But in your experiences that you mentioned, did any of these tend to push you down this path, or did you just try to explain them and in so doing start down this path?
In the 70s, I would say in the middle 70s, I was in the service. I was in the Navy, and I recall being at home, leave. I had a 15-day leave at home, and I encountered a group of people, or it looked like a family to me, that stopped, and they were driving what I remember was a black vehicle, maybe a Mercedes, and they stopped on the side of I was walking near my house. They stopped on the side of the road, and they asked for directions, but they didn't really pay attention to what I told them. They seemed to be staring at me or looking around. They all were, what I remember, they were like blonde, the whole family, kind of Scandinavian looking, but the hair was kind of sparse, and they were very pale, and they were tall, and they were all in the car. And then these same people I saw later on at a grocery store, which I visited, and they were all at the grocery store, and I was very surprised to see them there again.
Sounds a lot.
These I will think they were maybe some kind of hybrids.
Sounds a bit like what was experienced by Ingo Swann, and he related that he had such an experience with a blonde female humanoid in Las Vegas in the book Penetration.
Penetration, yes.
Wrote. And so that sounds sort of reminiscent. And it does sound like that they were some form of hybrid, like maybe with the Nordic type alien, would you say?
I would think so. Maybe not exactly the Nordic type, but definitely the blonde, maybe the tall white.
Yes.
That's what they look more like to me. Ingo Swann is, I have a strange, not a, maybe, one, I had no, back in the 70s, I had no idea who Ingo Swann was. I know he was already involved in type of, paranormal research during that time.
Indeed.
I remember being a young man at that time. I woke up one morning and I had his name in my mind.
Wow.
Ingo Swann. And I repeated his name a couple times. And I was maybe 18 or 19. I had no idea who he was. Back then, I didn't have a computer to Google his name.
No.
And later on, I learned who he was. But for some reason, his name came to my mind during that time, and I have no idea why to this day.
I
I never did contact him.
Wow.
He lived in New York City in the West Village, and not so far away from where I was in the East Village. And believe it or not, I knew many people who knew him, both on the East Coast and the West Coast, and I could never make his acquaintance. But I do understand that he was one of the most powerful psychics out there. In fact, during the remote viewing program at Stanford Research Institute, he was the only remote viewer of many powerful psychics who could read numbers that were hidden from him. It's very hard to read numbers for a remote viewer. This is just by the by, but he was able to do so. So I wonder if he was projecting his name to your consciousness, because I would not suspect most people of being able to do that, but him, maybe so.
And Ingo Swann is such an unusual name. I mean, it's not like thinking Tom Jones and not a celebrity at that time either.
Right.
Wow.
I kept saying to myself, Ingo Swann, what is that? Who is that? And this is right before I joined the Navy, and after that, I heard about him, but much later on.
But yet
I never forget that.
And it so impressed you that you didn't forget it. And, it sounds like almost a silly dream. You wake up and I think, well, what kind of name was that? And then you'd forget about it, but you did not. So that's interesting.
No.
Was that right around the time that you had these other encounters?
I had encounters. I'm originally from Cuba, and when I was a young man there, maybe 6 or 5 years old, I had several encounters with. Maybe they fall in the category of maybe ghost. I'm not sure. Maybe they're the same thing. I'm not sure. But I remember one day, maybe I was 5 or 6 years old. There was a hallway in my house where I lived, and there was a mirror. I walked by that mirror, and I looked at the mirror, and there was a man.
Oh, wow.
Staring at me. He looked like he had a beard, and he looked like your typical, what you see in the movies when you see the old Spanish soldiers, a conquistador with a helmet, helmet and the beard. Huh. And he was looking at me, grinning at me. Huh. Now, I was frightened. I ran and told my mom. Of course, she dismissed when I told her. She didn't believe me. That was one of the experiences that I had. I remember another experience. Also, it was kind of one of those when you have one of those lucid dreams that it's very, very real, but you think it's only a dream. But I was sitting in the kitchen. There were several, what I can only describe to you, Ferruccia, there were beings, and I couldn't see no features because they were like white and luminous.
Wow.
And they were like talking to me. I know they were talking to me about something important, but I don't know if I never did remember or I never did recall what they were talking to me about.
Perhaps they were
maybe that's why. I don't know, but that's one of the reasons later on in life maybe I became so interested in this subject.
Sure.
Well, I think that's the case with the two of us as well. I was going to say perhaps they were speaking to your higher self, and that on some level your soul remembers what they had to say to you, but when you came into the 4D reality that we experience here on Earth, that was hidden from you, much like, possibly your past lives or, your soul group and, are not communicating with you on the conscious level in 4D.
Also, I just want to quickly mention that a lot of us are sort of, we don't talk about these things unless we know someone really well, which is another reason that they keep hidden. So yours is a wonderful place to have everybody come and recount their experiences. It's Garuda, Garuda 79 at att.net. You're a brave guy to put this all out in public, Albert.
Listen, I want everybody to share their experiences. I know that there have been many people, maybe perhaps thousands of people that have gone to their graves without sharing what had happened to them. And I think everyone should know, everyone should share their experiences with others so they know they're not alone.
Yes, I agree.
That it happened to other people, and everything should be known to see what's really going on.
About the mirror experience that you had, I just want to share with you that when I was a little girl, I had to spend a lot of time with my grandmother when my parents were out of the house, and she lived upstairs from me, and she had a variety of antique mirrors there. And when I was up there alone, like if she was not home for whatever, going out and getting groceries or whatever, I would take like towels and cover the mirrors because I felt that I could see something watching me from inside those antique mirrors. And it wasn't until I was an adult and I met some Jewish folks who told me that when a person dies in a traditional Jewish household, that they cover all the mirrors during the period of mourning. And I felt that because it's a very old tradition, predating Christianity even, that this might be a meaningful tradition, and that I somehow intuitively felt the same way. What do you think about that, Albert?
Well, mirrors always fascinated me. If you stare into a mirror, it is said that if you stare long enough, you could see either your future self or other beings or other events. That's you have to concentrate and stare at it. I tried it several times. It has to be maybe dark, but yeah, I think mirrors are like, I don't know, maybe they're a gate through other dimensions, because I do a portal. I do believe in other dimension places and realms, which I think most of the humanoids come from other dimensions, which sometimes they're like you say, portals are open and they briefly come into our reality, and that's what happens. We see them, and I also believe that there's also what you call the UFOs. I believe there is an extraterrestrial presence here on Earth also.
As do we, I believe. Can you give us an example of, like, say, one of your favorite things from the past several months, one of your favorite humanoid sightings from the past several months, what you think is really kind of almost like an open case or something of that nature?
I'm trying to, like I said, my recent files I'm unable to open my laptop. There's today, for some reason, my laptop is not working.
It's those little guys. I'm telling you,
I don't know.
We have had more glitches while doing this, and it's so unexplained. And we all look at each other and go, "We've come to call it the Tesla effect."
I don't know. I got up this morning at 4:30. I go to work early. I turn on my computer. It's working fine, no problem. I get back home today at 2:30, 3 o'clock.
Bingo, right?
It's not working, and I tried everything. It's not turning on.
Well,
and it's fairly new laptop, and then you don't know how frustrating it is. But it is frustrating because I have a lot of files there which I haven't backed up yet.
Oh, you have
But
backed up?
I'm hoping I could copy the files. If there's something wrong with it that it's not savable, maybe I could save the files. That's what I'm hoping. We'll see. But I could tell you a report that's always fascinated me.
Okay.
It's not a recent report, but it's one that occurred back in 1973.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, 73 was a very important year as far as encounters and humanoids. Most all over the world, in the United States mainly, but also in other parts of the world. Now, this report occurred in France, and at a location that's November 26, 1973, around 1 in the morning, a place called Marius, between Marius and Malbec in the Nord region of France. And this is a man and a woman. They were parked in a vehicle on a road between those two small city towns, and they noticed at a nearby field a large metallic hemispherical object about 50 feet wide, and the field was covered with snow, and the object was there about 100 yards away. They stare at this object. A dark opening appeared, And from this opening, from the door or the portal, 6 beings came out.
Beings?
Now, there were beings. They're entities.
Beings.
6
okay,
human.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, beings. I'm sorry.
I just misunderstood. I'm sorry.
Humanoids. I'm sorry. And there were 3 different kinds of entities, of beings. There were 3 small humanoids. The first 3 they had the large head, about 4 feet tall, and they had protruding eyes with white and holes for a nose and narrow mouth and bulging cheeks, and their arms were very long, and they were dressed in tight-fitting one-piece metallic suits. And each of those carried what appeared to be a dark box about 6 inches. And on the side of the box, there were what appeared to be white luminous screen on the box. These 3 beings walked slowly, stiffly, and fanned around like if they were searching for something. And gradually they approached the road until they were about 50 feet from the witness. And they stood there. Behind them, near to the object that was on the ground, appeared out of the object 2 human figures. Also, these were about 6.5 feet tall. These human figures were like light complexion and blonde shoulder-length hair. They were like tall Nordic type beings, and they were dressed in light, light tight-fitting metallic suits also. And they stood on closest to the object. But then this is the weird part. Closest to the object, next to the door, appeared a squat figure, a very strange figure with long dangling arms, and it was apparently covered with dark fur. According to the witnesses, this creature, whatever it was, resembled a bear or a great ape.
Wow.
Sounds
and then this creature, that's what I'm saying. Appeared to be guarding the entrance to the object. Just stood there. After about 10 minutes, the small beings began to approach the car, and the young woman, became frightened and jumped out and slamming the door, and ran back to her own vehicle, which is parked nearby. When this happened, the man saw that the figures, the little beings, re-entered the object. First, when the animal-type being, the ape, went in, followed by the 2 tall humans, and then by the 3 small humanoids. After that, the object rose up into the air and disappeared vertically and then westwards at very high speed. Later on, they found strange tracks in the snow in the morning, and footprints. This is was investigated by French researchers, Joel Mesnard. He's the one that's involved with the French journal for ufology, Lumières de la Nuit, Lights of the Night. It's been on for years. And Jean-Marie Bigorne. Now, this case, I always found it fascinating because of the different types of entities seen apparently working together.
Interesting, yes.
The two tall humans with long hair, blonde hair. Of course, the 3 type humanoids with a large head. And most interesting, the ape-like creature.
Yes.
Which apparently, would accompany the other entities.
That is fascinating. It reminds me a little bit of the fact that Travis Walton reports in his abduction scenario that towards the end he was in an area where there were a variety of different types of aliens as well. And
yes.
It kind of makes you think that either the little guys are like androids, perhaps, or they could be. It could be like a League of Nations sort of a thing of space, a space League of Nations where there are different civilizations working together.
Maybe that's what I think. They're different type of species, and they have their own the same objective here on Earth. I mean, if you look at Earth, we're like in the back waters of the galaxy, a little speck of dust in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, And now it's just I'm thinking that there's like in science fiction stories, there's got to be thousands of civilizations in our galaxy alone, and they must have some kind of cooperation or federation, you know, which maybe in the future we will be allowed to join in. Who knows?
When we stop being so mean as human beings.
When we stop destroying our planet and killing each other.
That's
when,
right.
hopefully.
That's right.
Yeah, well,
Good luck on that,
yeah.
right, Kate?
I can't see any bright light on the horizon, unfortunately. But obviously, when you see all these people, and I asked, we had Denise Stoner on, and she's had the fortune or misfortune of being abducted many, many times. And actually, after she got over her fear, would actually have conversations with the abductors. And I had asked her if she had any sense of their history. And in other words, I'm sure they evolved from earlier organisms. And, their civilization probably went through several growing stages. I don't think you become an enormous technology overnight. You have to go through certain phases. Do you ever get that
Right.
sense from the beings that you've had interactions with that perhaps they're trying to help us along a bit? Like grow up, Dumbo,
No, I think that throughout our history, we've been influenced by outside forces.
Yeah.
Either being humanoids or beings from other planets or dimensions. But I think we've been at times helped along. They have prevented catastrophes, and I think that we've been at least watched for a long time throughout our history. If you consider all the accounts of encounters and sightings throughout history of strange events, even during the Dark Ages, during the plague, there were reports of and strange encounters. I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of manipulation going out of the human race.
Could be.
Maybe there are positive forces and there are negative forces. Maybe there's some kind of struggle between them. We're stuck in the middle.
One of the problems in ufology is that you just never get enough consistent data to come to any conclusions. And for example, with you have consistently reported these cases. Now you have 17,000. That's a lot of data. And yet it's disparate enough where it doesn't lead to any particular conclusion other that there are humanoids aside from humans on this planet. And that's quite a conclusion. That alone, you don't have to explain it. Just that alone is enough.
I don't try to find a solution to the UFO, quote unquote problem. I don't. I gave up doing that a long time ago. The problem with many of the researchers and UFO groups that they think they're going to find a solution. They're going to solve the UFO problem, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think all you can do is collect the data and see and report. And I think the solution, they're the only ones that can tell us what's really going on or what's happening. I don't know. The government might have more information than we do, but I'm not really sure if they really know exactly what's going on.
It's possible that our human minds can't quite comprehend the entirety of the situation, and that it involves things that are beyond our understanding simply because we don't experience them directly. I was wondering what you thought about the Nephilim. Do you have any interest in the really ancient aliens and the giants that were the Nephilim?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I read most of Zechariah Sitchin books, and like he called the Anunnaki, and I think the Nephilim were, I believe they're, in my opinion, maybe they were some kind of human alien hybrids that for some reason they were wiped out by more powerful forces, perhaps the aliens themselves. But I believe that, like I said, throughout our history, we've been interfered with and directed by other forces, beyond our understanding for most people, I believe.
Can you recall any of the other sort of hybrid kind of experiences that you have recorded there? Because I had one question about something that I encountered in the East Village a couple of years ago. So just wondering if you have any others on tap there, or whether I should go forward and ask you about one particular experience of mine.
I have so many cases around. Like I say, I'm trying to. A lot of the hybrid type cases that I have are beings that, like I said, I appear to be human, but not completely human. And I know some cases, like in Mexico, a lady and her daughter encounter a very tall entity at a supermarket, at a market, grocery store, that appeared to be standing there looking around, and very tall, wearing a tight-fitting green coverall. He was blonde, and apparently they were the only ones that were able to see him. And he just stood there, and they tried to get the other people attention, and no one really paid attention to them.
Wow.
Sometimes I think these entities are able to, when they manifest, they're able to control the environment around them, and maybe they choose who's able to see them or not.
Or how they're seen. Maybe they're projecting their
True.
Tall blondness, as well as other things. My experience about 3 years ago on the streets of New York in the East Village, and if you know what the East Village is like, it's filled with people wearing unusual clothing, maybe with various piercings and tattoos, and so something like that would not be unusual for me to see.
Okay.
In fact, there was even a fellow walking around who had implanted in his forehead horns. Yes, he had horns implanted in his forehead. Don't ask why. I didn't, and I did run into him in the supermarket, but I knew he was a human being because I knew about him. However,
Wow.
I was on the street a couple of times, actually 3 times this one summer, and twice I saw what appeared to be a man, and the other time a couple. Now, the man that I saw twice, he was walking with a couple of other fellows, normal college age, maybe a little bit older, young men, and he had a head the size of a grapefruit. I don't mean he had a small head, Albert. I mean he had a head the size of a grapefruit. Now, I was really dumbstruck when I saw him. I stared at him. I didn't mean to. I looked away thinking, my God, this poor guy, what's going on with him? And then I looked back, and these other fellows who were with him, they didn't seem to make notice, nor did anybody on the street seem to notice that this poor fellow had the head the size of a grapefruit or smaller. Now, I wonder, that's what I was getting to. I wondered whether I was just being rude, or whether I was the only one who could see what he really looked like, or what was going on.
No one else seemed to notice.
No one else seemed to notice.
Just like I mentioned that case in Mexico, that these people saw this 7-foot tall man, blonde, and not just typical person you'll see in a Mexican supermarket. And these people that they were trying to get everybody else's attention, and everybody ignored them. They were apparently the only ones that were able to see them.
Well, his friends seemed to be talking with him and so forth, but what I think they couldn't see was that his head was only the size of a grapefruit, and the other people on the street who were passing him by, didn't see that he had this really peculiarly small head. And, who knows? I don't know to this day if it was some form of an unfortunate affliction, like a birth issue that he had, but even at that, I would think that other people would have been looking at him strangely, because people are just not all, people try to be kind sometimes, but they're not, they would have been just gobsmacked seeing that.
I'm sure that's completely unnatural there. I mean, maybe they couldn't see what you were seeing.
I saw him more than once, and I also saw that at the same time frame I saw a couple walking down the street on 14th Street in the East Village, and they also had peculiarly small heads. And I wondered at the time, perhaps this was like some form of a group that had come and, just were hanging out in the East Village, a group of humanoids or something, and then they disappeared. But I guess I won't know. It's like you say, it's hard to find the answer to these things.
But it would happen.
The weird thing is I don't know if you remember back in 1989 when in Voroshnev in Russia, when the aliens were reported some of the first reports of UFO landings and sightings in Russia in the 80s, 89.
Uh-huh.
The aliens that were reported there, according to many witnesses, like in the park, a UFO landed and a giant being came out, a creature, and his head was small compared to his body. They said his head was small and round. Also.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they had large bodies, but their heads were like round and small, maybe like a grapefruit, maybe a little larger than a grapefruit, but small heads.
But perfectly formed heads? I mean, just small?
I'm not sure. Some of them were. They said that the heads were like a stump, maybe not completely like a head, but like very small. Yeah.
Wow.
This is in '89.
Was that the one where the UFO landed in the schoolyard?
In a park. In a park, and there were a lot of juveniles or students that they were witness to the event.
That was I think one of the best landing reports ever.
Yes, in September there were several incidents actually, all the way covering from September all the way to December in that same area, and there were like landings and reports of UFOs and contacts, all kinds of incidents.
And actually, the government at that time made no real effort to cover it up. I believe it was fairly well covered in the press too.
It was. Well, the first time that the Russian newspaper news agency TASS came out with such a report, which has really surprised a lot of people. I remember.
They seem very much more open to it over on that side of the globe than we are here in America, so much so that in one of the stands, maybe Kazakhstan or Tajikistan, they have built a UFO landing port, and one of the former presidents of Russia came out. There's a
contactee, yes, yes. He's a former president of a Russian republic, Kalmykia. He, according to him, he was abducted back in the 90s, I believe, and he was contacted, and a lot of people, take him seriously over there. They consider him, a normal person
and a very respected man.
Right. He even met the current president, Russian President Putin. I'm not saying Putin is any good, but he's apparently he's someone that's taken seriously over there.
Yes, and one of the other fellows who was actually the president of Russia, not the prime minister, but the president of Russia, he said that when he became president, they gave him 2 briefcases, and one briefcase had in it like secrets of the Cold War, about the U.S. and the different countries that they felt were kind of enemy countries, and the other briefcase had inside of it all the UFO reports that they deemed to be real. So
there's a report about the secret KGB files dealing with UFOs and encounters. Yes.
Well, one of the funniest stories I recall is the late Bud Hopkins was on once, and when he was living, I guess, in Chelsea in New York. Across the street from him, there was a sort of a liquor store, I guess, like where he would buy wine and so on. And he became friendly with the man who was, the owner. And the guy eventually told him this story, which he said, listen, even though I have this establishment, I'm just not a drinker. And so I said, everyone thinks I was when I told them this story. He drove home from New York City to New Jersey one night, and I think it was over in the Clifton area. And as he's coming up along the Palisades, this saucer type, this egg-shaped saucer lands in front of him. And the man was so amazed he stopped. It was one of the parks along the Hudson. I forget which one. Anyway, beings come out. They start digging up some dirt, and they look at him, wave, and get back in the craft and leave. And the guy was absolutely flummoxed. He goes, it's 2 a.m. As it turned out, a doorman of one of the high-rises actually saw the same thing too, so there were 2 witnesses to this event. But it took him years to finally tell Bud Hopkins about it. But that is so bizarre. I mean, in the middle of a metropolitan area, in one of the few parks that we have here, this thing lands, digs dirt, goes back into the craft and leaves.
Well, I think I heard of that report, yeah. Obarski, that was his name?
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't recall it all. Yeah. It is so bizarre. Yes. I mean...
yes, it is.
It's almost laughable, really. I mean, but
who would make up something like that? It's it's too weird to be.
Well, exactly.
Fake.
The guy was not like a joker or anything. He was a really serious business guy. So,
it's true. A lot of the encounters are completely. Like you say, laughable. They're strange. They're not cohesive. They're like a lot of people are left, completely confused.
Totally.
I don't know if it's something that is part of a plan, or I'm not sure. But a lot of the encounters are completely. They don't make any sense. That is, the bottom line.
Well, and then everyone tells you, well, yeah, that's because they're not human, and it doesn't make sense to us, but it makes sense to them. But it would
True.
be. But
yes.
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. One of the what the hell is his name? The guy from SETI, Seth Shostak. Yeah.
Shostak, yeah.
Shostak.
Yeah.
Right.
Here they are looking for aliens, but if you mention UFOs, they tell you no, they can't exist. So, it's sort of a little bit hypocritical. But anyway, SETI does not recognize UFOs.
But they want to send beams now. Not only listen to beams from space, but they want to send a message to space. And there's a big disagreement on whether or not they should do that, because there are a number of people who believe that it's very highly dangerous. And one of those people is, of course, the physicist and, major genius, Stephen Hawking, says, look what happened to the Native Americans, the first people in this country and in Canada and Latin America. A lot of them got massacred when they were introduced to a civilization whose technology was a bit advanced, and they only slightly advanced.
Exactly. Very advanced.
The Incas and the Aztecs in South America were wiped out by a handful of Spanish.
Yeah, and the conquistadors, they were not so far advanced. They were 100 years advanced. They had firearms or whatever. Other than that, the Mayas had a great civilization. They weren't back in the Dark Ages. They had their, quite a vibrant, the Aztecs and the Mayas had quite a vibrant civilization, and yet they were wiped out by a slight technological advancement. So, so Stephen Hawking says that we are very rational to believe that there are beings on other worlds, but it is a very bad idea for us to
say howdy.
To try to contact them.
To contact them by saying, "Hey, we're over here,"
and we're still sort of dumb.
And a wonderful woman I know who was a veterinarian said to me that if you look at most of the higher developed animals on the planet, most of the ones with more intelligence maybe accepting the bonobo, the great little ape that is a vegetarian, most of the higher animals are in fact carnivores or omnivores, like humans are omnivores, but the tigers,
Yes.
the lions, the dogs, for instance,
Right.
the dogs even are carnivores. So if evolution proceeded on such a level in other places in the galaxy, it's likely that the carnivores are the ones who succeeded.
To serve man.
Yes, that old to serve man. To serve man.
So yeah, the episode from the Twilight Zone. Yeah.
Yes.
But Seth Chotek went on to say, and this is the reason he doubts UFOs, he goes, no matter how you get here, it has to cost something in energy. And energy will cost something to a civilization. So he goes, so now you have a whole planet sending exploration out. He goes, and they're coming here to form hybrids with humans. And he goes, you mean to tell me this is going to pass a parliament somewhere on some planet? We're going to spend $7 trillion so our reps can go down to this dingy little planet and have humanoid creatures reproduced. He goes, it's not going to fly. It's just the governments are not going to pass it. So that's why he thinks that they're not coming here.
Well, his premise is wrong because he's assuming that they're like us.
Exactly.
They could be completely different from us.
Right.
Totally. Maybe they don't have the same type of government, and they don't need to be going to Parliament to be approved to do anything. Maybe they're so far ahead of advanced that they don't need that. They're beyond that.
And
they're beyond any comprehension, any human type comprehension. So I think that thinking's totally wrong.
And they don't have radio signals either, which Seth is looking for.
Seth is out there looking for the radio signals, which we've
had
for about the last 70 years, and is fading out now. We're not on the radio. We're on the Internet right now talking to you rather than the radio.
Yeah.
They're looking for people that have radios like us out there. I mean, it's completely wrong. Completely.
Short-sighted.
Who's to say that who's to say their technology is so far advanced that they already been through that stage of radio or astronomy and for a million years ahead of us. I don't know.
Well, all the people that we see here, or the people that are, or the beings that have been reported to you, certainly do seem to be at some sort of an advanced level too. But what always struck me too, as far as like Farusha brought up, you being an anthropologist, which you really are, a very well informed one too. Every civilization on Earth seems to have reports of little people. Like the Hawaiians have the Menehani, and the Irish have the leprechauns, and various cultures do report these small people that have almost magical powers.
Elves, trolls.
Oh, elves, sure.
Yeah.
Do you find a lot of that?
Oh, yeah. The American Indians, the Cherokees, the different American tribes, the Amerindians, all of them have their tales and their culture revolving around tales of little people, even giants also, but mostly little people. In Mexico, you find different reports of little people, some of them that flew. I mean, even the Eskimos. It's a worldwide thing. Australians, they'll have their, I say myth, but I don't think they're really a myth, because most of myths are based on real events anyway.
Yes.
But, I still get reports of modern day leprechaun encounters, believe it or not. I can't say where they're from or what that means, but there are people that still report them to this day.
And one other phenomena that I would like you to maybe talk to us a little bit about is something that seems relatively new, and that is these black-eyed children, this the phenomena where one or two kids comes to the door of people, and they are they have no their whole eye is like the pupil, and
they're black. Yeah, the BEKs seems to be like. At first, I thought it was some kind of like urban myth or urban legend, like Slenderman or whatever. But I've been getting a lot of reports about these type of incidents also. And I recently, another researcher, he sent me about 100 pages of cases.
Oh my goodness!
Dealing with different encounters with this type of beings, whatever they are. All I can tell you is that I think they are not friendly, and I think they're dangerous.
Oh,
if they're real.
Yes.
I think if somebody ever encounters one of these, because if they knock on your door, don't let them in. Don't do what they tell you. You have to shut the door and hope they leave quick.
What are
That's my advice.
I don't know anything about this, Fruscia. What this is sort of a new thing?
It's a kind of thing that has come up, what would you say, Albert, in the last 8 to 10 years? And it always involves kids that are like 10 to 18 years old coming to your door in twos and threes and asking to come in.
Right, and their eyes are totally black, and the witness usually feels a lot of apprehension and fear.
Terror.
Some of the witnesses have told me that terror. They feel like that if they didn't leave or shut the door, or they would have died. Some of these people have told me this.
Wow.
I think it's a real phenomenon, and I think it's not well understood yet. I think it's part of the humanoid thing, but I don't know. I don't think they're a positive type of being.
No, it doesn't sound that way, does it?
No.
Are there any other trends coming up that you have seen, like an upswing in anything else?
There's been a lot of recent encounters lately with humanoids and craft. It seems to be already for 2015. I know several cases already. It seems like it's been picking up a lot lately. And
any particular region?
I don't know.
Any particular region of the country, or maybe are they in the United States, in Argentina, or in the Northwest, or not a particular place?
Always in Argentina, there's always cases there that come out. I heard of recent cases in Puerto Rico, and up in Florida, and Washington State, and New York. There's been recent cases. And I hope I could retrieve, because all my latest information is in my laptop. Hopefully I could get that fixed and retrieve all that information.
Oh, gosh, I hope so.
Yeah.
I really hope so. And we really hope that you've enjoyed speaking with us and that you will agree to come on again with us sometime.
Definitely. Today has been one of those days for me. I had no idea what was going to happen with my laptop. I'm sitting in a different room with the other old computer, and not with the latest information in front of me, and I apologize. But
that's okay. I think
please,
we've had a fascinating conversation with you.
More
don't you,
than
Ken?
enough information. Yeah, you're
yeah.
great. Totally. But
well, thank you.
No, thank you. I mean, it's certainly everybody that does this. And it's always a joke when someone says, "Oh, they're just doing it for the money or the attention," because the attention you get is not welcome.
Not often
No,
you get criticism.
And the money you get is Zippo or minus. And so
right.
People do this for the
love
just
of it.
and to try to spread knowledge and to waken other people up that there are things beside us.
And besides,
Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, just besides everything else we've said about you, positive, Albert, one more thing that I want to say is that you are multilingual, and I think it's very important that we make inroads into other other countries where people speak other languages and that we're able to share. So people like yourself and AJ Gavert in Brazil, who, speaks English
Right.
and Portuguese, I think that this is very, very important for the study of humanoids and ufology.
That's one of the things I have tried to do, is expose cases that are not known at all here in the West, from different countries, like in the Eastern Europe and the Middle East, different countries that I have translated. I've translated hundreds of reports, and I want to, compare cases from different parts of the world, and spread the information around, the knowledge.
Very important. Very important.
Yeah. And tonight I had an excellent conversation with you ladies, and I hope to do it again.
Oh, absolutely.
We really want to have you back on. And do you? We'll repeat your website information.
I believe it's Garuda.
Okay.
Well, that's his email.
How would people really let you know about an experience they had, Albert? How would
they could email me at my email, Garuda79 at AT&T.net. Garuda is spelled Garuda, and then 79 at AT&T.net.
And also everybody who wants to read this multitude of fabulous reporting of sightings, they would go to www.ufoinfo.com. Okay.
And then /humanoid, which that's where all my research is in there.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Albert. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And for
I thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Our pleasure entirely.
Absolutely. And listen, for anyone listening to this podcast, we'd love to hear your comments on it, and I'm sure Albert would like to as well. So as well as contacting Albert, you can always contact us through ShatteredRealityPodcast.com.
ShatteredRealityPodcast.com. Like us on Facebook.
Please.
Make suggestions to us. Talk to us. We want to hear what you have to say. And we are thrilled to have had Albert on today.
And if you'd like to hear from anybody else, please let us know. Our next podcast will feature David Biedney. That's going to be a conversation not to be missed.
Yes, indeed.
So thanks again for listening.
Welcome to Shattered Reality with your hosts Kate Valentine and Farusha. Prepare to have your paradigms shifted and your truths questioned. And now, Shattered Reality.